All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, I'm going to be the bad guy. I'm going to say it, okay? We, as Path of Exile players, specifically Trade League players, and I was that for 6 years, have been spoiled over the last few years. It's crazy to me to see how many videos and posts have come out saying that the game is dead, everyone hates the way the loot is, no one wants to play loot goblins, MF like has never existed. Yeah, right. Everyone doesn't want to MF. Do you remember Scourge League? Yeah, the most popular build was Lightning Arrow Deadeye MF because you had 2 maps worth and you had crazy quantity bonus. Yeah, MF has never been popular. Okay. Anyway, there's this running theme, I feel like, in every single league that has come out. It has to be more rewarding in the same fashion as the league before or people lose their minds. It's unreal. Every single league that has come out, you can generate ungodly amounts of currency if you do the things the game is asking you to do. And yes, right now people don't want to do the things the game is asking them to do, but if your main purpose in the game is to generate currency to then craft or buy gear, just do the thing to do all of this. There's like this stubbornness where if it's not exactly how I want it, it's their fault. It's not really. I understand why they wanted to change it, because realistically, in any other ARPG, how is it acceptable in Path of Exile that if you stack up these certain modifiers, you're generating literally like 50,000 times the amount of loot as anybody else? Could you imagine this if this was in Diablo 3? No, you wouldn't. You kill a Rift boss and you drop 78,000 items that you have to sift through. Nobody would play the game, and nobody thinks just to think for 5 seconds, how is this acceptable? How has this been going on for so long? But realistically, if you're there to generate currency, just do what the game is asking you and get all the currency you want. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this video. If you like it, remember to subscribe, like, hit the bell button. I go live every day over on twitch.tv/Drydeck_TV, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Let's dive into this video. All right, so what I mean by we've been spoiled is that over the years, Grinding Your Games has really given us so many different tools to interact with the game in the way exactly how we want to. And I do sympathize with people. A lot of people, including myself for a while, juiced maps were kind of like the goal. You wanted to get into T16 maps. You wanted to do 2, 3, 4, 5 Deliorb maps with then double, triple beyond before they changed it. It was this aspirational content that was, you know, pretty exclusive. You didn't really get to do it with too many builds, and not a lot of people got to do it. But when you did, it had a huge payoff. I understand why Grinding Your Games wanted to take away some of the percentages of the historic loot boss. Like, I understand, because it doesn't really make sense from an ARPG perspective that's based on loot. If you're doing this one mechanic and stacking it with all these different multipliers, where it's many, many, many thousands of times more loot than the other parts of the game. And there is this overwhelming, I think, desire to be the most efficient and do only what generates absolutely the most currency. And I think it's really souring people's experience with the game. Now, this is coming from someone who has struggled and not really made very much success. There has been some leagues, like in Legion, in Trade League, where I made 50, 100, 150 exalts, playing a relatively simple build, doing a fairly simple strategy, but it was fairly mind-numbing, fairly easy, and I just kind of got along with the game, and that was really fun. But there is this just crushing, overbearing need to do what the most, like, you have to do exactly everything that gives you absolute maximum everything, or the game doesn't function even at a base level. So after watching like Bayclast and some other podcasts, like Bayclast specifically, you know, all 5 of them on there say, like, as a solo player, which is the majority of Path of Exile players, anecdotally, they all said that their loot is fairly similar. Some are saying it's even better. Like Captain Lance even said, like, oh, people say crafting is dead and all this other stuff, and he thinks it's in a fairly good spot regardless. And, you know, Grimro, he's like the solo juice guy, and he's generating tons and tons of currency, but he's not doing it in the way that he used to, where he just did triple beyond. He adapted to the game and is now making lots and lots of currency, but a lot of people just fail to adapt or just choose not to, and then wonder why their methods don't work anymore. And look, I get it. You want to play the game how you want to. I get that. I really do, because I played trade for league for a long time, and I thought, oh, this is it. And it's funny because like after a week of playing solo self-found, there has been just this crazy shift in dynamic for me. And I know, oh, he's only been playing for a week, just wait until he plays for 3 years. Okay, I get it. Like there's the extremes on both ends, but playing solo self-found for the time that I have, I've really understood, like, if you just let the game kind of dictate what you need from it and even put the most minimal effort into it, you'll eventually get there. And I think that's where that eventually kind of comes into play with a lot of people, is by, you know, week 1, day 3, day 4, day 5, people are generating mirrors worth of gear, right? And someone, another content creator had said that he was talking about, oh, I'm not able to generate mirror tier gear as easy. It shouldn't be easy. Like, you shouldn't be able to make the best gear in the game available, possible, in like 5 days. I don't personally think that. There's so many stars that have to align, and usually have to generate so much amount of currency. It's just crazy to think that people are like sad that they can't print mirror tier gear anymore as easy. It's meant to be chase items, dude. Like people are saying like div card farming is dead and all this other stuff. It's like, okay, I get that people want to farm div cards, and it was a very valuable source of income. Like specifically, let's say Crimson Temple, right? Someone did a post, and they did like 1,000 MF version on last league versus this league, and they got like 25% of the loot that they got last league. And it does suck, but he still generated in that 25% probably so much currency you could play any build you want outside of some insanely expensive stuff. It's like this weird disconnection between, I generated 2 mirrors worth of gear or 2 mirrors worth of currency versus 20 mirrors of currency, and if I don't get the 20, I can't play the game. It's like most people play their builds on a 5 to 10 exalted budget previously, you know, maybe now 5, 6 divines, right? That's the majority of people, I would imagine. And there's just like this crazy top end focus that it just needs to be, I'm generating so much currency per hour, and people have this weird warped perception that if the league doesn't deliver it exactly how they want it, the game doesn't work. I understand that people don't want the loot goblin playstyle. It's not fun to have these huge spikes in loot, apparently. I find it extremely fun. I kind of like just the, okay, I'm collecting a couple things here and there, you know, 20, 30 Jeweller's Orbs at a time, couple chaos, and then boom, I get like this crazy burst of, you know, synthesized base and fractured bases, or I get like 28 div cards all at once. It makes me excited to actually kill rares, and I feel like Grinding Gear Games has achieved that, for me at least. I'm actually excited to kill rares. I was personally getting kind of tired of just killing as many things as I possibly could. I wanted more impactful loot per kill. That's what I personally wanted. And this nerf to like historic quantity and rarity has really, I think, changed people's perception on the core of the game. And I said this in my last video, like, were people really doing Alva outside like Soul Self-Found of people who genuinely enjoy what Alva does, outside of maybe like the double corrupt stuff or the gem corruption? Were people doing Alva to get like Alva gear with Alva temple mods? No, they weren't. They were doing it because it was generating probably 10 to 15, maybe even 20,000% more loot than anything else. And then if you stack, of course, like the historic modifiers on it, the old beyonds and all this other stuff, you get to a point where you're in one instance of an Alva, people were generating more currency than people do in an entire league. And somehow the disconnect is just like, if that's not happening now, the rest of the game doesn't function. But it does. You go do Delve, you go do Heist, you go do June, you do a little bit of Harvest. You do all the things the game gives you chance to do, and you eventually get there. And maybe it's just a time commitment thing. People don't want to invest as much time. But again, it all ties back to my first point. We as Path of Exile players have gotten spoiled over the last 2-3 years that every league has to just generate an obscene amount of currency within the first week, or else the league is shit and Grinding Gear Games sucks. most people quit after 1, 2, 3 weeks, maybe even a month. And I'm wondering if it's because there's so much access to so much power so quickly to the people who know how to do it. I don't know how to do it, that they end up be like, okay, I have everything I want. What's the point of playing the game? And I'll use this as an example. When I was young, my brother, he was 16, he got his first debit card. He went on to D2 JSP. He bought a level 99 full BIS Boazon to go farm cows on single player, right? Or on Battle.net. He farmed cows and everything. He bought it, and 11 to 12 minutes later, maybe 15 minutes later, he logged out and never played it again. I'm pretty sure he actually deleted the character instead of reselling it, right? And that's kind of where I think Path of Exile has gotten to. You get so much stuff so fast that people end up quitting because they have access to too much stuff too soon. It might seem like a weird concept. Oh, I've got access to everything I want. What's the harm in that? It's not inherently a bad thing if there's more avenues for you to use the stuff you get. I think build diversity has just been in the can in the last couple years. And what I really mean by build diversity is if T16 maps are like the threshold of like quote unquote like end game content, the amount of builds that can interact with a like full 8 mod, you know, T16 map with league mechanics on is very, very few. And after playing Righteous Fire for the week or week and a half that I have on Still Self-Found, I've realized that the barrier of entry is way, way, way too high. And like Ziggy D said it perfectly on the podcast, there's like too many fun taxes. And what I mean by that is like every character has to be, you know, block capped, evasion, armor, have to have some sort of regen, some sort of, you know, slow immune, maim immune, hinder immune, all the elements immune, corrupting blood immune, silence immune, like whatever it is. You just have to so many immunities. It really, really limits the amount of things you can do, because if you require too many defenses out of your character, you get to the point where fewer and fewer options as offensive abilities become available because you need a certain amount of scaling and functionality with less and less damage that you can put on your gear and your talent tree. And I feel right now Path of Exile is probably the worst it's ever been for that. And Tarky Cat said that, Ziggy D has definitely said that. And it's just, I don't know, at the end of the day, it sucks to not play the game in the way that you've been playing for so long, because some people are very much more knowledgeable than I. Like, I mean, I'm not claiming to be very good. I just kind of get along with the game. But I feel like there's this huge disconnect between like the reality of what's actually happening, and people always fail to look back at previous examples. For years, leagues have come out where people are making 300, 400, 500 exalts an hour, a day. It's absurd. Honestly, like, I understand why GGG wanted to pull it back. It is fun to see these gigantic showers of loot, but realistically, in that shower of loot, when people are generating more tier 1 TZ uniques and currency than most people will ever find in many, many leagues, I'm sure, as a solo player, what I would do that as a company too. I would be like, no. You don't get to do, you know, something that generates 100,000% more loot than that guy. Let's take the gap down and maybe shift the power into something else. And you as the player have to find the system that works. And guess what? People have. And if people are generating 50, 40, 30, 20 divines a kill, and they're getting, you know, 1 God Touch monster on average every 5 maps, they're still generating a ludicrous amount of currency per hour. I feel because Grinding Gear Games kind of fell down on the communication and let these changes go undocumented, the reason they probably felt like it wasn't going to be that big of a deal is because they knew probably inherently that someone was going to crack the code eventually, and maybe it wouldn't be the way that everybody would want to play the game, but if your main focus is generating currency, there is ways to do it. You can still generate a ludicrous amount of currency. I don't know. Personally, I think the game is changing actually in a positive direction. I'm not saying we should slow down in the fact that we don't want to go zoomy and kill everything on the screen. I actually enjoy kind of the more spiky loot. I like just the eventual kind of grabbing things here and there, making a little bit of upgrades, and all of a sudden you get this huge shower of loot and you're like, oh my God, I have access to all these different things, and oh my God, I can finally make the big upgrades, and it feels way more impactful. And personally, Grinding Gear Games has done exactly what they wanted to, make loot and those loot explosions meaningful. And I understand that maybe perception on those loot explosions is kind of tainted because it's not all of the currency per hour in the world, but honestly, it was bad for the game in the long run. We generate too much loot in this game. It's just the reality. Any other ARPG would crumble if the trade economy was inundated with as many things that Path of Exile generates on a daily basis. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna get going. Enough rambling. If you like this video, remember to like, comment, subscribe below. I do go live every day, twitch.tv/Drydeck_TV, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!